And great. Well, welcome everybody. We are delighted to have you join us today. We have a great turnout for Brian's talk. This is the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup, and we cover all kinds of topics. AI has been our big focus in the last year and a half. It's clearly an important topic for everybody. So please do feel free to put your LinkedIn profile in the chat. We'll also ask you to mute when the speaker is speaking. If you'd like to ask a question, you can raise your hand or put a note in the chat and I'll be moderating that. So now I'd like to introduce Brian Piper, who's going to introduce us to custom GPTs, a ChatGPT feature that allows you to create specialized AI models for personalized tasks. And Brian is the Director of Content Strategy and Assessment at the University of Rochester. He's the chair and founder of the institution's Marcom AI Committee and a member of the AI Council. He does AI consulting, workshops, and presentations at various higher education institutions and conferences. And his latest book, The Epic Content Marketing for Higher Education, just came out last month. So maybe, Brian, you could put a note in the chat so people can link to your book.
You bet. And it's just up on my website. Is the only place it's available right now. I just threw that link in there. So welcome, everybody. Great to see so many people here. So I'm going to be talking about using generative AI, mostly talking about custom GPTs in ChatGPT to supercharge not only your work, but also your life. I've been using custom GPTs really since they came out. And I have about a dozen that I use personally, and then probably 30 different ones that I use at work. And they have changed my workflow entirely, and they have helped me optimize a lot of my processes and take a lot of the work off my plate that either I don't want to do or that's repetitive and monotonous. So if you want to grab the slide decks, the slides from today, or the template I'll be talking about, or any of the tools that I'll be referencing, you can go to getmyslides.info or use the QR code. I'll put this up at the end as well. So 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, I guess, I went to the Marketing AI's conference, Marketing AI Institute's conference, MACON in Cleveland, and basically had my mind blown over and over at the capabilities of these tools. Like even the tools that we have now, a lot of different use cases that I hadn't thought of before, a lot of different ways that people were integrating these into their work, into their lives. But in Paul Reitzer, who's the CEO and founder, in his keynote, he showed this kind of timeline of where AI is, where it's going. And so kind of now we're in this advancements area, the LLM advancements. So the tools are really just, kind of foundational, just getting started. And then we're really looking next year, and the next round of models comes out, we're going to have this multimodal explosion. So all of these tools are going to be able to do audio, video, text, images, code, and basically switch back and forth between all of those different platforms fairly seamlessly. They'll be able to see and hear through your phone's camera. So we're getting to see a lot of like glimpses at a lot of those technologies now. But really next year, in the next round of models, those are really going to start coming to fruition. And I'll cover some of that during this presentation. But then the AI agents are really where we're going to start seeing a significant impact. So custom GPTs, I see these as the training wheels for AI agents. So custom GPTs, if you haven't used these, they're like mini models that you can create within ChatGPT. There's also within Gemini, you can create gems, and within Claude, you can create little mini project models in there as well. ChatGPT is, I think it's the easiest one to use to set these up. They're very quick to set up, but they're these mini models that can handle a very specific problem and look at things from a very personalized perspective. So you can go in there and you can customize these models to basically do exactly what you need. And, so as these AI agents come on board, these agents are going to be able to perform tasks for us. So they're going to be able to, go between different tools, between different software programs, and they're going to be able to link tasks together. So an example that is often used is, you know, probably by next year, you'll be able to tell your phone to look through your email, figure out what your next event is that you're attending, and set up your airfare, your hotel, give you recommendations on places to see, places to eat, all those different things. And then you'll be able to set up like checkpoints throughout that process where it'll say, is this the flight that you want? And it'll create all of that information based on your data history and your preferences. So definitely going to change the way that we work, change a lot in our lives. It'll be like we'll all have our own personal assistants. One of the things Paul was saying is that he thinks that within the next year or two, we're going to see our first solopreneur company, one person owned company hit $1 billion in revenue because they're going to be able to use these LLM models to act as their CEOs or act as all the different staff that they would need to, basically create a 60-person agency. And then, moving forward on that, once we start seeing these tools integrated into robotics, and then eventually all of these, companies that are creating these models are really aiming towards this AGI, this artificial general intelligence. And, they're predicting that within the next 4 to 5 years. So that's really going to have a significant impact on the way we work, on our economy. So lots to think about there. So I want to talk a little bit about custom GPTs. I'll get into more work examples, but first I want to talk about, so last time I gave this presented to this group, and I'll throw the link to that YouTube channel. I presented about the first GPT I created, which was to help me with meal planning for my family. So it was the Culinary Creator, and you can go and track and see how many times you've used different custom GPTs within the model. And so I've used this over 400 times since I created it a year and a half ago. And it basically takes my 15, 30 minutes of meal planning and shopping list creation that I had to do every week. And I can do it all in about 5 minutes now. So it helps me brainstorm ideas. It gives me recipes. It creates preparation lists for me. And it gives me a comprehensive shopping list in the order that I shop in my grocery store. All the preparation methods that it includes in the recipes are based on the way I like to cook and the, different accessories I have. So you can go back and see more about that in my last presentation, but I wanted to show a different use case in this presentation. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about cleaning your basement. So a couple months ago, my wife and I decided that it was time to do a big basement clean out. Not fun. We ended up with probably 40 different things that we needed to get rid of. So we were talking, do we want to do a yard sale and, waste a whole day sitting out there haggling with people over price, or do we want to just post this all on Facebook Marketplace? And I was like, well, let's do that. But that seems like a nightmare, 40 different things that we have to put on Facebook Marketplace. But by this time, there was already ChatGPT. So I thought, this is a repetitive task. There's a lot of data involved in this. Let's see if I can just ask ChatGPT to help me. So I took the first item, I took a picture of it, I took a couple pictures of it, and then I threw that in ChatGPT and just said, you're an expert seller, write some descriptions. I'm going to give you some images to put on Facebook Marketplace. Look at the pricing and pull that, and then give me the title, description, and the price. And then it did that. And it actually, just by looking at the images, was able to go out and research all the features and all the, specifics of that particular item. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And it went out and it found a price based on comparable prices out there on Facebook Marketplace. So then I said, all right, now let's, I listen to Ann Handley a lot and read a lot of her posts. And she was talking about selling this sofa on Craigslist. And when she just wrote the plain, description of it, not very many people were interested in it. But when she wrote like an exciting, thoughtful story about it, then it sold better. So then I asked it to do that, put a story about it, make it exciting. So then it did, are you ready to conquer the mountains and shred the slopes? So I thought, all right, has some potential, but I don't want to enter every one of these items as an individual different element. So I thought, how can I create a custom GPT for this? So anytime I'm going back and looking for a prompt that I used previously that was helpful, if I do that like 2 or 3 times, I think this is a good situation to create a custom GPT. So then I just created the secondhand specialist. So there's 2 different ways to create GPTs. You can either use the create function where it will ask you questions like, what do you want this to do? How do you want it to talk to you? So the first time that you create a custom GPT, that's probably a good way to do it. But now when I create them, I just go into the configure settings and basically I just posted in most of what I got from the initial post that I had tried out. So, basically just saying, pretty short, pretty easy. You're just going to help me write Facebook Marketplace ads. And, you can either have factual descriptions or, interesting descriptions. And then I'll upload the image. And then you just give me the title, description, details, and the price. And then I also found that on Facebook Marketplace, they have a Excel template that you can use and you can populate that with multiple items at a time. So I just uploaded that into the files because you can upload files into these. And I said, whenever you create this picture, this listing, when we're all done, I'm going to ask you to put these all into an Excel file so I can upload these all at once. So then all I had to do was take a picture of all the different 40 items and just say, create a factual listing for it. And then boom, it would create that. And so I did that for all 40 items and it probably took me less than half an hour. And then at the end, I just said, use the Excel file and it created the Excel file for me. I was able to download that and then upload that right to Facebook Marketplace. And all of those things were immediately listed and available. So saved me a ton of time and a ton of work. And now I have a tool that I can use anytime I want to list something else on Facebook Marketplace. So thinking about how to integrate these tools into my personal life has helped me figure out better ways to integrate these into my work. So in my job, I do a lot of content creation, content optimization. So most of the use cases I have are around either content or data. And since I've been using these tools, I've been keeping kind of a running list. And this is just a few of the things from that list. I probably have almost 100 different use cases from my job. And then as I go through these and, get into processes, I figure out where I can create duplicate. Anytime I do something for the second or third time, I'm like, okay, this probably needs to be a GPT. So one of the most useful ones that I have created, and I talked about this in my last talk as well, was the virtual persona. So basically, I used ChatGPT and I asked it some questions. The prompts are all in my previous presentation. But basically, I said, you are a potential undergraduate student at the University of Rochester. And here I uploaded our common data set, a bunch of information about, what the student body makeup is like. I gave it a link to our about page, a link to our strategic priorities page. And then it gave me a bunch of information about what that student might look like. And then I asked it all sorts of questions, like when you're building a regular persona, I asked it all those questions. What are your decision criteria? What are the barriers you face? What does success look like to you? So it gave me all that information. And then I was able to create potential Pat, the undergrad, and just put all of that information into the instructions. And so now Pat acts as our virtual focus group. So whenever we have new content, we can run it through Pat and say, does this content look interesting to you? What is not in this content that would help you make your decision? So this doesn't replace traditional personas because the process of interviewing your actual audience members can't be replaced with AI at this point. But it is a great addition to it. We have like dozens of different people that we're trying to, different audiences that we're trying to connect with in higher ed. So we don't have time or resources to create, individualized personas for each one of those. So AI really helps us scale that up. Um, so we have probably 7 or 8 different virtual personas that we created like this. So now we can also use it to test our content for different audiences. So within ChatGPT, you can actually @sign your custom GPT. So you just enter @ and it will give you a list of the GPTs that you've created. So you can select potential Pat, and then you can ask Pat what they think about your, new AI pillar page, and, what information might be helpful if they were considering enrolling at the university. So they'll come back and say, testimonials from students or professors working on AI projects, or information on AI ethics and collaboration could help, you know, provide us more information. So that's good insights, but then you can also change this and at your university board member. So within the same conversation, now you can ask a different audience member what they think about your content. And they'll come back and say, well, here's some additional content that might be helpful for us to know, or that might be useful to, the people, the constituents that we're concerned about, which also includes like student involvement and interdisciplinary connections. So now we can start getting an idea of where we might have gaps in our content within our different audience segments. So now we can figure out how we can add that extra content um, into our landscape. So these are the examples I showed you so far are custom GPTs where you have to have the paid version of ChatGPT to create these. You can share these with people if you set them as as you set them as public. You could share these with other people, but then they're available for everybody to see. So I'm using ChatGPT 4.0 to make these, Linda, and I do have the paid version of that so that I can create these custom GPTs. But any of these GPTs that you make public, anybody could use. So there are a few public GPTs that I really like. This one is Jobs GPT by SmarterX AI. So Marketing AI Institute started a sister company that focuses on consulting. That's SmarterX AI. And they created this Jobs GPT where basically you can put in a job description or even just a job title, and it will show you how that job might be affected by the integration of AI. So I did that with my current job and just asked, how will AI impact my job role? And it basically takes that job and it breaks it down into all the different tasks that are part of that job. And then it shows you what the exposure level is for each of those tasks and how much time you might be able to save by using this tool or by using AI. So we actually ran this against all the jobs within our department and then took that to leadership and showed them and said, based on this data, we could save 40% of the time that we're spending doing all these different tasks. And here's a breakdown of the different tasks and how much time we could save with each one of these. And this is also helpful because you can look at this and get an idea of what tasks you perform that may be difficult to automate with AI. So like the content strategy portion of my job is probably going to be one of the least impacted areas by AI, whereas, SEO optimization is going to be more impacted by AI because you can automate a lot of those tasks. A lot of those are data driven. In my last presentation, I also covered a variety of other tools. So yeah, actually, Matt, what came of the effort to describe those efficiencies? So we were able to to help encourage leadership to see the importance of AI. So I'll talk about this later, how we've established an AI council. We're integrating it into our workflows. We've got a whole AI initiative of how to start building this as into part of our processes. So that was a big part of it, was figuring out how to show them the advantages. I also had a whole deck that I put together, um, thanks to some of the people that came and presented in here. If you look back at some of the previous presentations, there was a excellent session on how to start an AI council. So I actually followed that model directly, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And in my last presentation, I also talked about a variety of these different tools. All of these are fantastic tools to, ChatGPT, obviously, to help you with strategy, brainstorming, ideating, editing content, repurposing content. So if you want to take a blog post and turn it into a 20-second TikTok video, ChatGPT can do that very quickly. Midjourney and DALL-E are both text-to-image generating tools. Descript and Capshow are editing, video and audio editing tools that can like heal audio. So if you drop out some audio within your presentation, you can go train it on a clean section of audio from that person talking, and you can type in the words that they said in the part that got lost, and it'll sync that up in their mouth movements and in their voice. It can force eye contact with the camera if someone's reading off a script or something like that. It can remove all the ums and ahs. Um, Opus Clips and Gloss AI are great tools for repurposing video. So long form video, it can take a horizontal video. It'll automatically go through and detect the most relevant, impactful parts of the video, and it'll pull those out, convert them to 20 to 60-second clips, make them vertical, and add the text overlays on them so that they're immediately ready to put up on social. So saves a ton of time from having to manually go do all those tasks. Jamie, what are your thoughts on Perplexity, ChatGPT, Claude versus Copilot? Is one better than the other? Good question. So I love Perplexity. That has basically replaced Google for me, and I'm an SEO guy. So yeah, Perplexity is great for doing research. I love that it cites all of the sources that it gives you, so you don't have to worry as much about it hallucinating. You can go and validate those right away. ChatGPT, fantastic for data analysis, brainstorming, ideation, um, uh, you know, building these custom GPTs. Claude is my favorite tool for long form writing. I like the writing quality out of Claude more than any of the other tools for now. And then Copilot, we're still trying to find good use cases for Copilot. So, that's an ongoing struggle. So let me jump back to this. So, oh yeah, Rebecca, I put that link here. Let me put that link in there again. This is from my previous session. You can go check that out. So, HeyGen, that's a fantastic tool for creating video avatars. So I know someone that uses HeyGen to manage her AI courses. So she's created these AI courses, but as we all know, AI changes all the time. So she trained HeyGen on a 30, maybe a 2-minute video of her, and then she used that avatar within her courses. So basically, all she has to do is go and type in a transcript, and it will create the course using that avatar with her voice, her natural body motions, her mouth movements. And then when she has to update that course, she doesn't have to re-record. She doesn't have to re-edit. She just goes in and changes the transcript, and it automatically will output the new video that she can put into her learning management system. And it will also do translations. The example I showed last time was like a short 10-second video clip of me talking in English. Within 2 minutes, I had that translated into German, Spanish, and Korean. So it's very interesting watching yourself in your voice speaking languages that you don't speak and saying things that you haven't said. And that's where we're going with a lot of this stuff. And I did want to show a little taste of Runway. So Runway is a text to video tool. I talked a little bit about how all these models are going to become more multimodal. So the text to video generation has increased dramatically in the last year, and over the next 6 months to a year, I think it's going to also exponentially continue to increase. Lionsgate Entertainment just signed a deal with Runway, and I'm sure we're going to start seeing a lot more AI generated videos. Runway just had their second annual film festival, all AI generated videos. So I'll just play a little bit of this, but remember, as you watch this, none of this is real footage. None of these people or places exist. They were all just entered in as text prompts.
Brian, do you remember what your prompt was for this?
And so basically, I think Runway is up to about a minute of video output now per text input. Might be 45 seconds, but so basically the movies that they put together are all stitched together short clips like this. I don't need to play the whole thing, but really impressive, the quality and the fidelity that we're getting out of these tools now, and the impact that this is going to have on the movie industry, on actors, on CGI. It's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. And then just recently, Notebook LM came out. This is just another kind of showcase tool. This was something that Google didn't kind of released quietly. They didn't really understand or recognize the impact that this might have. But basically, you can take up to 50 different PDF files and upload them into one of these notebooks. And then you can, a lot of people don't like reading newsletters. So this is an internal newsletter that we send out to our team. So it's, some people would rather listen to the content. So you can translate this into audio very easily. But instead of just having the audio read to you, now Notebook LM can actually create a podcast episode with two different people talking to each other about the content. So I'll just play a little sample of this.
Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're cracking open the September core report.
Yeah, always an exciting time. Like opening a present, you never know what cool new tools and updates they've come up with.
And let me tell you, this month's report is all about making our lives as site admins easier.
Music to my ears. Efficiency is key, right?
Absolutely. So let's jump right in, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, we've got to talk about this RSS feed game changer.
Oh yeah, this is a big one.
Remember how we used to manually, hey everybody.
So not real people, not conversations that were ever scripted out. This is just the AI having this two-person conversation based around the material you upload. So not only is it interesting for, putting in like a single newsletter like I just showed, but we have also tried uploading numerous different data sources around our content performance, and then asking for a conversation and with insights about that data and about the content that's in there. So that's led to some really interesting perspectives on the tool. And then recently there was a link here. Let me share this as well. Someone set up a notebook where they basically told the characters, the notebook LM characters, that they were AI generated and not real. And then they had kind of an existential discussion about what that meant and what happens when they get turned off. And, you know, it's just a predictive model that's kind of coming up with that script. But when you listen to it, you know, as humans, we want to empathize with them and think that these are, you know, actual sentient uh, beings that are talking about their own existence. So lots of different kind of inception moments in that little discussion they had. So, and now I want to talk about how we're using this for data analysis to better understand our content performance and optimization. So we do a lot of work in the university, and I'm always telling people when I go speak at conferences or when I'm talking about content, I'm always saying, look at your data. But I stopped saying that this year. Now I say, let AI look at your data. So when we run these website optimization projects, we do a variety of different audits. So we start with a strategic audit. What are you trying to get your content to do? Who are your users? And then we get into these 4 different, like kind of more detailed quantitative audits. So the analytics audit, how is your content performing currently? And then we look at your actual website performance. So how fast are things loading? How are you working on search and for your users? And then how is your information organized and structured? And then we look at your search audit. So what are your opportunities within, you know, your current rankings? We're actually creating custom GPTs for all 4 of these last audits. And they're significantly reducing our work time on these. There was 1 week where we did 3 months worth of work, and that was work that we wouldn't have done previously because it was just too time consuming. So now we're able to look at a much broader scope of data. So I just want to show you one example of how we're doing that. So one of my favorite tools when it comes to looking at search performance is Google Search Console. I love Google Search Console because it gives you all sorts of fantastic information about what terms people are searching on to find your website and what pages they're coming to and how many times they're clicking through to your website. But I also hate Google Search Console because it's not very well laid out. It doesn't show you the queries and the pages at the same time. It doesn't give you the high level picture. When you export data from Search Console, it gives you about the top 1,000 results. And we know that we have more results than that. So what we always do is we take our Google Search Console and we connect that to a Looker Data Studio dashboard. This dashboard template's actually at that getmyslides.info link. You can just make a copy of it, connect it to your Search Console, and get all this information that you pay tools like SEMrush and Moz a lot of money for. So basically, it shows you in one view what terms people are searching on, what pages they're landing on from those, how many times they're searching on those every month or whatever the period is that you've defined up here, how many times they're clicking through to your website, and then what position you rank for average over that time period. So this is great, fantastic data. We use this all the time. We've been doing this for years. The problem with this is it's a lot of data. You look down here, we have 949,000 results, like keywords that we're ranking for. Hard for us to filter through all that data to figure out what's the most relevant, what helps us perform better, especially related to our strategic goals. So now what we do is we just right click on this dashboard. We export that as a CSV file. We put that in ChatGPT and say, you're a content marketing expert. Look at our strategic priorities, come up with 20 new content ideas. And then boom, within seconds, it comes up with all sorts of different content ideas that are based on terms we're ranking for, focused on our strategic priorities. So it just gives us great ideas about what content we should be creating, or we might want to try creating and test, like A/B test that to see if that's really performing well. But then we take it a step further and we take all of those recommendations and we paste those into potential Pat. And then we say, as a potential undergraduate student, what content are you most interested in? And then Pat comes back and tells us, here's why I'm interested in these different stories. So here's where you might want to look at creating content for your admissions page. So this has been fantastic for helping us identify content and really figure out how to target specific audiences with strategic content based on where we already have search priority. And then another thing that I've been doing a lot recently, especially since ChatGPT came out with the advanced voice mode, is you can just come down here on your any mobile device where you have ChatGPT on it. You can click on the little audio signal down here, and then you can just talk to ChatGPT. So when I was driving to the Marcom event, my boss called me probably half an hour before I started the 4-hour drive. And she said, I know you're going to this conference, but we need to change the way that we work. We're too tactical. We're not strategic enough. You know, I want you to, when you come back on Friday afternoon, I want you to have something put together for me to figure out how we can, you know, better focus on high level strategy. So I got in the car. I started talking with ChatGPT. I spent about an hour and a half talking back and forth. It was asking me questions. I was answering it. We were bouncing ideas back and forth off each other. By the time when we were done, I asked it to output a, a Word document or a document that I could then take. So as soon as I got to the hotel, I was able to copy the high level summaries, the key points, the action items from the end of that conversation, put that into Word, format it, review it, double check it all, make sure it all looked good, and send that back to my boss and say, you don't have to wait till Friday. I was able to do this while I was driving in the car. So fantastic capabilities that these tools provide for us. So we've had lots of conversations about how we can start integrating this into our entire institution. How can we get everybody on board with using these tools? And how can we really be leaders in this space within higher ed? So I decided to start a Marcom AI committee. I used some of that jobs GPT information. I put together a deck that talked about the benefits of adopting AI as well as the risks of not adopting AI, which I think a lot of times leadership pays more attention to that. And I listened to a lot of conversations that went on in here, in other places where people were talking about how to start these marketing AI committees, these councils. Paul Raitzer, Marketing AI Institute, has lots of great resources about that. But basically, we started a group. We reached out to other people within the marketing spaces across our institution and asked them who was using AI, who was interested in being on this council, because we wanted enthusiasts on the council. We got people from all across the institution. We got about 20 of us together. Within the first 3 months, we created guidelines, institutional guidelines around the usage of AI. We looked at about 40 other institutions and brands that already had guidelines. Lots of great resources out there for that. We bounced the ideas off of several different people, got a lot of feedback. So we came up with some pretty solid guidelines. We came up with short-term and long-term roadmaps about how we want to integrate and adopt and test different tools and platforms. We looked at a whole bunch of different use cases. We got a small budget to test out about 10 different tools among the 20 of us. So we were able to run tests against all those different use cases to try to identify which use cases we wanted to set up as pilot projects for the institution. And then along the way, we talked with all sorts of people across the institution who were using AI, trying to figure out how they were integrating the tools into their, academics, into the research, into the clinical portion. We actually got the idea for the virtual personas from our business school, who was creating virtual TAs. So if a student can't reach their TA or if the professor's not available, they could jump online and ask these virtual TAs to help them out with questions that they had about their class. So we started off just with marketing and communications, and then within a couple months, we discovered there was actually an AI council at the institution that we didn't know about. So we reached out to them and they said, oh, you should join our council. And so we joined the council and we asked what everybody else had been doing. They had 5 different domain committees within the council, including us. And no one else had really been doing a whole lot. So we were able to kind of help lead them forward with creating institutional guidelines and figure out kind of what the process is to identify these use cases and to start piloting different tools. So now we've got all across the institution, all these different groups getting involved, and enthusiasts from those different groups who are trying out different things and exploring. We just had our first AI hangout last week, where we just got about 30 people together and just talked about, here's how we're using the tool, here's what problems we're having, here's how we're figuring out how to get access from the university. So that has been a fantastic project. And let me look back through.
So Brian,
Let's,
let me ask you a few questions.
yeah,
So when you were setting up this council, can you talk to us about what some of the biggest hurdles you had to jump through? Because we know there's so many objections, whether it's from compliance or, you know, IT or legal. What would you say the top three were?
and I would say this varies from institution to institution, but our biggest roadblock was IT. And they were actually leading the AI council initially. And when we first joined the council and told them everything that we were doing, they basically said, we have to think about data privacy. We have to think about security. And we were like, yes, absolutely. But we're marketing. Most of the stuff we're looking at is not confidential. We're not looking at any student information. We're just looking at content performance. So they weren't too worried about the way that we were using the tools. But obviously, security has got to be paramount. We have a medical center attached to us. So they're very concerned about HIPAA regulations and patient data. So we started working with University IT to help them figure out a way that we could create an environment that would be gated off, that could use the API calls for these tools to get the capabilities without having to worry about the data, or the privacy. So, and we actually discovered that our cancer center has already been doing this, and they already had a model that we were able to leverage, that is totally secure, not connected to any other, any other outside source. So it's behind our firewall. So we had direct control over where the data went. So I would say, IT was a big block. And then I think leadership in general, just too busy to have much of an understanding or the time to really look into this technology. They kind of, a lot of leadership tends to think that this is something that they can get to later. So we've been making the point over and over that this is kind of a now problem, because the next set of models is going to come out. It's going to be more capable. It's going to be faster. It's going to be more powerful. And if we want to figure out how to integrate that and keep up with the technology, we need to have these guidelines in place. We need to have some awareness, some education available. And when we did our survey for our 300 Marcom staff across the institution, the number one request was, we need education and training. So that's been where we're focusing our efforts now.
And, you know, as somebody who provides training, I can tell you that companies still have not bought into training. Even if they onboard the tools, they're not taking the next step. And what that means is that employees aren't able to get the most and highest use out of these tools and to use them safely, right?
Yep.
They don't
Yeah.
understand about biases that are just so inherent in the data. How to reduce the instances of hallucinations. They just don't know any of those things. They
Yeah,
try a
absolutely.
few prompts and then if they don't like it, then they like say it's bad.
Yeah, we get a lot of that. I tried ChatGPT. It was horrible. It's like, well,
Yes.
let us show you. We've got this like short little training course on how to get effective prompting. And we've got a short little training course on the risks that you need to be aware of when you're using these tools. And then we've got these guidelines. So we're trying to make it very easy, but then we're also trying to show people, like, we've been hijacking meetings. We've just been going into people's meetings and saying, can we take 15 minutes just to show you some of the capabilities of these tools? And that's been super effective at getting more people to come to these AI hangouts and to join into the different council activities that we're having.
Yeah, that's really great. And I wonder if we should open it up to questions.
Yeah, I see a bunch of questions here in the chat. Let me see if I can Concerns about protecting institutional IP? Yes, absolutely, Linda. Very focused now on creating that standalone model that we can use that is protected and segmented. And we're starting to test using student data out in that and looking for admissions. Yes, newspapers and publishing sharing AI guidelines. Absolutely, Lisa. We are using ChatGPT Teams. So yeah, we did all of our testing within ChatGPT Teams, which was fantastic because we were able to share custom GPTs back and forth with other team members. And they did say when we signed up for the Teams account, which also the enterprise and the EDU accounts have this as well, is that they say they're not going to use any of your data to train the models, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your data doesn't get into their systems. So that's why we were really going this route with the API calls that are feeding into our segmented environment, basically. Linda, curious about proprietary information, new product intros. Yeah, the same thing. Any IP information should not go in these public models. Yep. Teams doesn't train the models with it. Yep.
But you know, Brian, you've probably read Ethan Mollick saying that really the chances of your data being uncovered when the model is like so vast.
Right.
You know, I know everybody worries about this, but I'm less worried because I think really what are the chances that anything that I've put in there is going to be surfaced, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has ways that they're using custom GPTs. I'm always looking for interesting uses of ChatGPT or any of these tools, really. I know one of our video producers just started, and they had been using Capwing, I guess, which is a video editing tool, and he just discovered that it has all the same kind of AI features that Descript has, where it can export social media videos, and or I guess Opus Clips has, where it can export social media videos from long form videos. So
Well, Brian, do you want me to show my favorite one that I created
yeah, you bet, absolutely.
in the few minutes we have left? So a lot of what I have to help clients with is doing competitive research. So I have this GPT, and all you have to do is to drop in company names, who your competitors are. My experience is that putting in 4 competitors or 3 plus your own company is really the max that you should do, because you'll get limited results if you do more. So what this has done, I've given it 3 companies to analyze. So it's coming back, giving me a competitive analysis overview of these companies. Can people see my screen?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. And then we go down and we do a SWOT analysis for the companies, markets and industries, core messages and phrasing, customer reviews based on G2, Trustpilot, and others. And then how customers evaluate competitors. That's also coming out of these sites like G2. Looking at the competitors' customers, what kind of customers do they have? Awards and accreditations, published financial data. This would always be something you'd have to double check, because, you know, sometimes AIs just make stuff up. Their most recent company news. I actually think this piece of the plugin, the instruction isn't followed as well as possible. It may be that the AI just can't find it. And then an executive summary. So you can do all of that by only putting your competitor names in here. So
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Jamie's comment in here that your competitor tool is also fantastic for job interview prep. That makes total sense. I also used ChatGPT voice to practice for job interviews or conversations. So I would take like this competitive analysis and upload that into ChatGPT and then activate the voice feature and say, I want you to act like an interviewer for this job. You could upload the job description as well, and then have a conversation back and forth where it would ask you questions. Works really well for that. Oh, and I see Linda asked if your competitor tool is available publicly.
Only from the link that I shared. The reason for that is, I think unless I can tell people that you may have to say continue, because it's actually beyond our control what happens with the AI, and sometimes it will just stop midway through.
Yeah.
So I try in my GPTs to make it clear that, you just have to give the AI some prompting along the way. So in this market research one, I can just say, let's see, I do AI training for enterprise marketing and sales teams. Let's see what it comes back with. I think the wonderful thing, Brian, about these is it's so fast, right?
Right.
When
Yeah.
you think what it would have taken us to do this,
Right.
before we had custom GPTs.
Yeah. And now all we have to do is just go through and validate and verify and look for gaps or things that we don't want to push in there.
Right.
So I just dropped the link in for Smarter X AI. If you go to their tools drop down, they have that jobs GPT I talked about. They also have a campaigns GPT, which is awesome for planning marketing campaigns, and then a problems GPT. So I actually took, when I was having this conversation with ChatGPT about our workflow issues, I was able to take that output and put that into problems GPT and ask it what it thought about that output. And it gave me some other interesting ideas. So these public tools are, usually I don't find a lot of public tools that I like, but these three, I really have been getting a lot of benefit out of.
Excellent. Brian, any last minute comments before we let people have a few minutes back in their day?
No, I think just thanks for coming. And this is the best time for us to be experimenting and learning about all these tools and technology. I think we're all in a good place. And just the fact that you're here means that you're interested and open to this, because this is going to change a lot of things in our lives dramatically. So I think the more capable we can be in how to use these tools, the better off we're going to be.
Yes, and thank you very much, Brian, for returning again to the group to present. We really appreciate that. And thank you, everybody. Probably in the next day or two, Dennis will have the video up on YouTube, and it's probably going to be in the Meetup page as well. So thanks, everybody. It was great to see you all. And thanks again, Brian, for an excellent presentation.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.